There's a certain kind of man who sounds like a machine when you first meet him. He speaks in frameworks, he answers your feelings with logic, he'll take apart any idea you give him and hand it back cleaner than you found it. So everyone around him reaches the same conclusion. They call him a thinker, cold, detached, a walking analysis engine, and every personality test he takes seems to agree. But here's what almost no one sees. That logic isn't who he is. It's what he built to survive being who he is. Because underneath the systems and the calm dissection of everything, this man feels more than almost anyone in the room. He's just learned to hide it behind a wall that looks exactly like intelligence. By the end of this video, you'll understand the most misunderstood personality in all of psychology, the INFJ who has quietly been mistaken for an INTP, and why getting this wrong costs him years of his life. This man exists in every generation, in every culture, in every family that ever raised a sensitive boy in a world that rewards being cool and rational. You know him. He's the one who went quiet young, the boy who watched the room instead of joining it, the one who read about feelings in books before he ever felt safe saying them out loud. As an adult, he debates beautifully and connects rarely. He can explain human emotion in stunning detail and then go home and feel completely alone in his own. It's a strange kind of contradiction. The man who seems to need no one is often the one who longs for closeness the most. He's just never found it safe to admit. Carl Jung, the psychologist who gave us these personality types in the first place, described a mental function he called introverted intuition, a quiet, almost prophetic sense of where things are heading. It's the dominant force in the INFJ mind, but it's invisible. It hides. And when a man can't show you his intuition, he'll show you his logic instead. We're going to walk through 7 reasons this brilliant feeling man gets mistaken for a pure logician and why the trap is so easy to fall into. Let's start with the one that surprises almost everyone. His intelligence isn't an act. That's what makes this so confusing. This man genuinely loves ideas. He can sit inside a complex problem for hours and feel completely at home. But the INTP and the INFJ run on entirely different engines. The INTP thinks to understand the world. The INFJ thinks to protect a feeling. The reasoning looks identical from the outside. The motive underneath could not be more different. So when you watch him reason, you're not seeing a cold mind at work. You're seeing a warm one wearing armor it forged itself. The tragedy is that the armor works so well, even he forgets there's anything inside it worth protecting. But the logic is just the surface. What's actually happening underneath it? That's where this gets fascinating. For this man, understanding something is how he feels safe. There's an Enneagram type that explains this perfectly, type 5, the investigator. The psychiatrist Claudio Naranjo described the 5 as someone who copes with a frightening world by retreating into the mind and hoarding knowledge like other people hoard money. When that 5 leans toward the 4 wing, you get something rare. A thinker who's secretly an artist, a mind that collects information to manage an overwhelming inner emotional life. So when this man retreats into analysis, he isn't escaping emotion. He's building a room strong enough to finally let himself feel it. And the 4 wing changes everything. A pure 5 is content to observe from a distance, satisfied by understanding alone. But add the 4, the type psychologist tied to identity, longing, and a hunger to feel uniquely alive, and the detachment cracks. Underneath the calm researcher is someone aching to be seen. Romantic, melancholic, quietly convinced no one would understand the real him if he ever showed them. So he keeps studying instead. Now here's where it gets more complicated, because this is the part most people, even the man himself, don't fully understand. The INFJ and the INTP both use logic, but not the same kind. Jung mapped out how the mind processes information, and the difference is everything here. The INTP leads with what's called introverted thinking logic as a first language, effortless, and native. The INFJ's logic sits much lower in the stack. It's a tool he picked up, sharpened, and mastered out of necessity. He's not fluent in logic. He's a brilliant translator who learned it so well you'd never guess it wasn't his mother tongue. That's why he can out-reason the room and still feel like a fraud doing it. The fluency is real. The belonging isn't. And this next part, the people closest to him get it completely wrong. People look at this man and see distance, What they're actually looking at is overload. Dr. Elaine Aron's research on the highly sensitive person showed that the most sensitive people often look the calmest because they shut down their outward reactions to cope with how much they're taking in. The INFJ feels the emotional temperature of every person around him all at once. So he goes still, he goes quiet, he retreats into his head, and the world reads that stillness as cold, when it's really the opposite. It's a man drowning quietly in a flood no one else can see. And there's a second layer to this. The INFJ doesn't just feel his own emotions, he absorbs yours. He walks into a room and reads it instantly. The tension between two people, the sadness someone is hiding behind a smile. Carrying that much all the time is exhausting. So the stillness you read as indifference is often a man rationing the little energy he has left. He isn't pulling away because he doesn't care. He's pulling away because he cares so much it physically overwhelms him. If you're the kind of person who looks at someone and wonders what's really going on underneath, not just what they show you, but what they're protecting, and you've made it this far, that tells me something about you. It would mean a lot if you hit subscribe. We put out videos like this every week, real psychology, explained in a way that finally makes sense. Now let's get to the part that costs this man the most. The real danger isn't that other people mistype him. It's that he starts to believe them. When a feeling man spends years being told he's a thinker, he starts optimizing for a self that was never his. He suppresses his emotional intelligence, his single greatest gift, because he's decided it's a weakness. Psychologists call this self-concept distortion, when your identity gets built around other people's misreadings instead of your own truth. He doubles down on logic, starves the part of him that needs connection, and slowly burns out from performing a personality that isn't real. You can see it most clearly in how he loves. He'll give a partner flawless advice and forget to give them his heart. He'll solve the problem instead of sitting in the feeling. And then he'll wonder quietly why the people he cares about most still say they can't reach him. And the cruelest part? The harder he performs the logician, the lonelier the real him becomes. But this is the root underneath all of it. No one is born hiding their heart behind their head. He learned it. Somewhere early, this boy discovered that his feelings were too big, too intense, or too inconvenient for the people around him, but his ideas got him praised. Developmental psychologists who study attachment have long shown that children adapt to whatever earns them safety and love. So a sensitive boy in a logical world makes a quiet trade. He buries the feeler. He promotes the thinker. And he does it so young, he forgets it was ever a choice. And the trade works, that's the tragedy of it. The thinking gets rewarded. The teachers praise it, the world respects it, and every bit of approval drives the feeler a little deeper into hiding. By the time he's grown, the mask has fused to his face so completely that he calls it his personality. The INTP costume didn't come from nowhere. It was the disguise that once kept him safe. Which brings us to the last one, and honestly the most important. Here's the truth that changes everything for this man. He was never meant to choose. The INFJ's actual power isn't logic, and it isn't pure emotion. It's the fusion, a deeply feeling mind that can also analyze what it feels with surgical precision. Mihail Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist behind the concept of flow, found that people thrive most when their natural gifts and their daily life finally align. For this man, that alignment is the moment he stops apologizing for being a feeler who thinks the logic was never the enemy. It was always meant to serve the heart, not replace it. And he doesn't need to be fixed to get there. He needs permission. Permission to feel without justifying it, to want connection without calling it weakness. To let one person pass the wall and discover the world doesn't end. When he integrates both, he becomes something the world is desperately short on, a man who understands people and himself all the way down. So the next time you meet a man who sounds like a machine, who answers your heart with logic and seems impossible to reach, look a little closer. You might be looking at someone who learned, far too young, that his feelings were safer locked away. Someone who built a fortress of logic so convincing that even he forgot what it was guarding. Someone who isn't cold at all, just carefully, quietly protecting the most sensitive thing in the room. He isn't a thinker pretending to feel. He's a feeler who learned to think to survive. And the moment he stops mistaking his armor for his identity is the moment he finally becomes whole. If you want to go deeper on the inner world of the INFJ man and why his rarest trait is also his loneliest, I put together a video on exactly that. It's right here when you're ready.